Hi fellow artists, my name is Lauren. I am the artist behind Potato Art Studios, and in today's video I thought I would go over some of the things I learned from my last pastel drawing. So if you haven't seen my latest time-lapse drawing of these two jellyfish done in pastels, I'll leave a link to them in the card pop-up and also have a link down below in the description box if you'd like to check that out first. But basically during that drawing process, I was just experimenting and playing around with different tools and trying to figure out how I like to work with pastels. So in this video, I'll be sharing with you what I learned, and hopefully these tips will help you if you decide that you want to explore using pastels. So if you're interested in hearing what I have to say, just keep on watching. Okay, so the first thing might not be a big deal for a lot of people, but for me, I really don't like the texture of that feeling of pastels or chalk on your fingers. That is, I don't know, it's some kind of texture issue that I just don't like. So to get around that, I use these facial wipes that's usually used to wipe off makeup. But these are really good at just quickly cleaning off your fingers if you start to have a lot of pastel buildup on your hands, and especially if you're switching between different colors like a bright yellow and a black. It's nice to kind of keep your pastels a little bit clean. So I typically just take out one wipe and just have it on the side, and when I need to, I just basically wipe my fingers off, and then I'll use just a paper towel to dry my fingers off, and then I can keep drawing. So if you have pastels that are wrapped, like this one, this is just a Blick pastel. So this is just a Blick Artist pastel. So it actually has this nice wrapper around it. So as you're using it, you just basically peel off the wrapper as you need to, and then you can keep using it. So this wrapper keeps your fingers pretty clean, so you don't have to worry about that pastel transferring to your fingers as much. But if you are working with sticks, or most soft pastels aren't wrapped, so you can imagine as you're drawing and coloring, it doesn't take long for your fingers to get pretty dirty and dusty. I mean, they are soft pastels, so they are going to come off pretty quickly. So in that case, I'll just take a wipe out of my pack, reseal it, and I can just wipe my fingers off pretty quickly, and then I can dry them off, and then I'm pretty much good to go. So it's a personal preference if you get annoyed by that feeling of chalk and pastels on your fingers. If you are like me and you don't like the idea of wearing gloves, because I also don't like gloves, using these wipes is a good option. And because the wipes are pretty thick, they're basically like a paper towel, so they're pretty sturdy. So I use them for probably an hour at a time, and they stay wet the entire time, so you're not using a lot of wipes while you're drawing. And my second thing I learned while drawing was how to blend pastels. I bought these soft tools. They come in different sizes. I just have a couple here to show you. But basically the one that I ended up using the most, or the only one I ended up using, was the #1 soft tool. And so basically this one you can see is already used, but all it is a kind of like a palette knife with a very short end, and you just slip over this sponge, and then you use this surface to blend out your pastels. So this helps you create a really smooth blend if you're trying to get gradients. This tool is really, really helpful. It's much better than using your fingers, and because of the surface area is flat, you can apply really even pressure, so you can get that gradient or just blending in backgrounds really well without a lot of effort. So it saves you a lot of time. The only downside is that it's kind of this is basically one working side and another working side. But if you wanted to blend out an area that was white, and then blend out an area that was black, your sponge is not going to be happy. So you would have to either switch out your sponge or flip it over if you're working with two very different colors. And so that means that you're going to either have to buy multiple soft knives to blend, or you're going to end up switching out your sponges. I'll leave the price of these blending knives on the screen, and I'll also have a link to them down below. But when you buy them, you basically get your knife and then you get 5 refills. So if you're working with a lot of different colors, either you're going to be switching out your sponge tips a lot, or you're going to be using a lot of different knives. And another blending tool I found that was really great were these dollar store makeup sponges. So these in particular I found at Daiso, which is a Japanese dollar store in California. And so I bought a 10-pack. Yeah, it's a 10-pack for $1.50. So these are really great because, I'll take one out. So basically you don't have to worry about slipping one on and off. You have 4 working sides that you can use to blend. So you can because it's double-ended, you basically have 1, 2, 3, 4 different sides that you can blend. So you don't have to worry about changing out your sponge applicator like the soft tool or buying a ton of knives. Basically these are for smaller blending areas and also detail work, and you just toss them once you're done, or if the colors get too muddy on the pastels on the surface. So you don't need a lot of these. I think in my jellyfish drawing I used 3 or 4 of these, so that's 75 cents for one drawing, which is not bad considering the soft tools are a bit more pricey. I also ended up using these tiny Q-tips or tiny cotton buds. So these cotton buds are smaller than your normal cotton buds, and they are very, very firm. So you can hear that, but they're sort of more pointed than your normal cotton buds. These are good for when you're trying to define edges. I really like these cotton buds. And my third tip is using glassine paper. So if you don't know what glassine paper, it's basically like a very smooth parchment paper. They use it often as like kind of a barrier sheet between drawings if you have a stack of drawings. Glassine sheet that I use is acid-free, and you can find them in most art stores, but if you don't have glassine on hand, I think parchment paper also works. The main thing is that you want something that's very smooth, so you're not going to smear your drawing, because you really don't want to have your hand rest on your drawing. So for my glassine sheets, they basically came in a pack like this. It's very basic packaging. But the glassine sheet, it's almost semi-translucent, like you can see my hand under there. So if I have my drawing underneath the glassine sheet and my hand is on top, my hand friction is interacting with the paper, the glassine sheet, not with my drawing, which would end up smearing it. So having these sheets is really good. And to move my sheet around, I'll either use painter's tape or masking tape to adjust the paper where I need it to go. And that was very helpful when I was working in the middle areas of the drawing where I didn't want to rest my palm on the drawing itself. I was doing a full background on my jellyfish drawing, so I was coloring the entire piece of paper from edge to edge. So as I was approaching the edges, one way that I found that was really good for getting to all of the corners was to actually stick on the tape in a certain way. So here's my jellyfish drawing, And so I stuck pieces of tape on the corners. But if you look at how I stuck the tape on, flip this around. So I stuck on a piece of tape on the back side and then put another piece of tape on the front. So that meant that I could color right up to the edges and I wouldn't have that problem. And so it's really nice when you have your tape on the outside so you can reposition your drawing if you need to. And I know people like to form a roll with the tape and stick it on the underside, but then it's hard to reposition it. So in this case, with how I have my tape, I can peel off the tape from the front edges and then reposition it if I need to. So it's a little bit more convenient, and especially if you're working with a full background, you want to make sure that your coverage of your pastels can go up right up to the edge if you want it to. Those are the 4 main tips that I learned while I was drawing this jellyfish piece. If you found these tips helpful, give this video a thumbs up so other people can find it. I'll definitely be doing more pastel drawings in the future, so be on the lookout for that. If you're not already subscribed and you would like to see more videos from me, subscribe and hit the bell notification icon so that you'll be notified when my next video is up. I post a drawing time-lapse every Tuesday, and that's basically a speed drawing of the latest subject that was voted on by my followers on Instagram. So if you're also not following me on Instagram, I'll leave a link down below in the description box to my Instagram. I have a poll up every week, usually either Mondays or Tuesdays, where you can vote on what you would like to see me draw next. So these jellyfish were voted on in last week's poll. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.